hand if you're going to speak, so that we get a clean record and we don't talk over each other. I'd ask you, the members of the public who are here, if you're familiar with the procedural workings of the BZA. If everyone's familiar, I'll skip the detailed explanation. You guys okay with that? All right. Because today's hearing is a public fact-finding meeting, we are in compliance with the Freedom of Information Act and SC Code 62970. Because this is a quasi-judicial body, everything said in this meeting must be complete, true, and accurate. All of the information provided to the BZA is considered evidence, and this board may certify contempt of circuit court if false statements are made, either writing or orally. Because of this, each person who wishes to address the board will be sworn in. So I'd ask if you plan on speaking today that you stand, and Joe will administer the oath.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
I'll now call case BZA 23-000013 at 280 Doral Open. Staff will present facts pertinent to the case, and I'll then call on the applicant to address the case. I'd ask the applicant to stand at the podium, state your name and current address for the record, and then present testimony. I'll then ask if there's anyone who wants to speak either in support or against the case, that they follow the same procedure for identifying themselves, and they're limited to 3 minutes each. The applicant will have an opportunity for rebuttal if we need to do that. So we'll start the staff's review then. John, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our one and only case for today is case number BZA 23-000013. This is a variance request, and the variance is for the reduction of the required 30-foot rear setback, and it's for approximately 232 square feet. The subject property, 280 Doral Open. This is for a proposed screen porch for the subject property. The TMS number, as shown, is 26409000020. The subject property is zone R1, and the property owner, Stephen and Colleen Marshall, being represented by Mr. Ben Danmeyer. This is located within the developed lands of Kiowa Island, and the lot size is approximately 12,731 square feet in size. The subject property is required by our zoning code to have a 25-foot front, 15-foot side, and 30-foot rear setback. And this property currently has an existing residence on it and was constructed in 1986, as acquired by the property owners in 2021. It does sit adjacent to a golf course at the rear of the site, and as stated, it is zone R1 residential. Properties adjacent to the east and west and to the north across Doral Open are additionally zone R1 residential. And to the south, where that golf course exists, that property is zoned PR, Parks and Recreation. This property is subject to review by the Kiowa Island Architectural Review Board. Staff will just go through a few images. Here's an aerial of the site showing its adjacency to the golf course at the rear. Zoomed in version of that same aerial. This particular lot does sit at the corner of, essentially the corner of Doral and Surfsong Road, similarly to the adjacent parcel to the west, creating a unique shape there. Here are a few site images gathered by staff. The existing structure on site. The existing lot coverage for this particular property is 31.9%. and this existing structure is legally non-conforming with regards to the setbacks. A portion of that rear deck does encroach into this rear setback. Based on our ordinance, this does grant the ability for a deck to extend into the rear setback up to 5 feet, and this is for open decks. And that approximately is 84 square feet of existing structure that's legally non-conforming. And that's beyond that 5-foot administrative relief. When we look at the applicant's proposed plans, they do include a rear deck modification, and these include the demolition of the current deck and structure, and a new proposed deck with a screen porch. This deck is approximately 232, which encroaches into that rear setback, and this is the purpose of that variance today. Comparing the existing structure to the proposed structure, there's approximately 148 net square feet of encroachment. When we look at lot coverage, the proposed lot coverage is 32.2%. So here's a site plan showing the existing structure versus the proposed. The area in green, looking at the image to the right, is the proposed site plan. That is that enclosed screen porch. The applicant has provided additional drawings within their set of materials. There's a floor plan of both the existing to the left and the proposed to the right. The existing showing the deck and screen porch, and the right showing the enclosure of the entire screen porch there. Few additional materials provided by the applicant. Existing site survey. When in regards to the approval criteria outlined in section 12-163, the following findings have been outlined within your materials, and staff will review those at this time, which in response to criteria A, there may be extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the property, and this is due to its irregular shape of the lot, the existing trees on the site, as well as the non-conforming status of the existing structure. The applicant has provided in their materials, quote, there are 3 contributing factors to the exceptional and extraordinary conditions at the site, and this includes the shape of the lot, which is somewhat triangular or pie shape. This limits the available area at the rear of the home where a porch could be built, and the rear lot line is also sharply angled in relation to the front of the lot. This creates an even more limited area for the rear porch. And lastly, the position of the existing home on the lot further decreases the it decreases the area available for a rear porch. We have reason to believe that the original designer or architect sited the home towards the rear setback and intentionally avoided the conflicts with trees within the front of the property, end quote. Criteria B, these conditions may be unique to the subject property and may not generally apply to other properties in the vicinity. As stated, the areas to the east, west, and across door open to the north are zone similar or zone R1 residential. Properties to the south, parks and recreation zoning, where the existing golf course adjacency to the south is. And the existing structures in the vicinity may or may not have similar setback encroachments based on the current standards. The applicant has provided in their materials, the neighboring lots are all much more rectilinear, and the homes appear to be sited more in the middle of the lots as opposed to all at the rear. And the neighboring lots also do not have the sharply angled rear lot line this property has. Criteria C, the application of the ordinance to 280 door open would prohibit the construction of the proposed deck and screen porch addition, as both that existing structure and the proposed structure encroach into the required 30-foot rear setback. And the proposed structure extends beyond that administrative relief that's provided within our zoning code for open decks and stairs. However, it does not unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. The applicant has provided in their materials that the current screen porch on the home is too small to function properly as an outdoor living area, and it is oddly shaped due to the current setback, even though it is currently encroaching roughly 2 feet beyond the existing setback. Looking at criteria D, the authorization of the variance, this may not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent properties or the public good. The proposed structure encroaches into the rear setback, sitting adjacent to that golf course as referenced, and the existing deck. The furthest extent of that structure, the subject property, is approximately 17.8 feet away from the rear property line. This proposed deck increases that approximately 2 feet to, decreases that approximately 2 feet to 15.5 feet away from the rear property line. And this represents that 2 feet change. The current structure, this current structure is currently encroaching into that rear setback. This is by approximately 84 square feet, and the proposed would encroach approximately 148 square feet. The applicant has provided in their materials that adjacent property owners have all reviewed it and approved of this project. We strongly believe that this renovation will help bring the home up more in keeping with the standards of the neighboring properties and the character of the zoning district. And we do not see detriment to any adjacent property or public good in pursuing this renovation. Looking at criteria E, staff believes the granting of this variance would not allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in this zoning district, extend physically non-conforming use of land, or change the zoning district boundaries. The applicant has stated in their materials that no change of use, extension of a non-conforming use, or change of the zoning district boundaries is to be gained by the issuance of this variance. Criteria F, the BZA may not consider profitability when considering this variance request. And the applicant did state that profitability would not be considered in this application. Looking at criteria G, the need for the variance may be the results of the applicant's own actions. As stated, this is a legally non-conforming structure, and that is with respect to the setbacks, the rear setback. The applicant has stated this is the need for the variance is not the result of the applicant or the homeowner's own actions. And the criteria H, staff findings that the granting of the variance may not be contrary to the public or neighborhood interests. It may not adversely affect other property in the vicinity nor interfere with the harmony, spirit, and intent of the ordinance. And the distance of the encroachment is minimal, increasing the approximate by 2 feet. A portion of the existing legally non-conforming deck, which encroaches into that rear, is being converted to a screen porch. And the applicant did state in their materials that the public and neighborhood interests would not be negatively affected by the granting of this variance. They feel that the request is aligned with the purpose, harmony, spirit, and intent of the zoning regulations. The final criteria is I, which speaks to the comprehensive plan and purpose of the ordinance. Staff findings that the granting of the variance may not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan and purpose of the ordinance. The applicant's proposed plans as well as the existing structure do encroach into that required rear setback. And the overall net will be approximately 148 square feet. The applicant stated in their materials, we strongly believe that the granting of the variance will not substantially conflict with the comprehensive plan and the purpose of the ordinance. Before the BZA considers the application, staff did highlight one potential condition that could be applied, which is the consideration of a landscape plan to be approved by the planning director in submittal for formal permits. And this would just be to show native plants or shrubs to enhance that buffer between the proposed structure and the rear property line at the foundation. That concludes my staff review, Mr. Chair.
Questions from the board for John?
I have a, what is the age of the house?
This
When was it
house
built?
was constructed in 1986.
And it says in here that they believe the original architect placed it at an angle because of the trees. Are those trees still there?
There are two trees. I don't know if I can pull up, maybe the survey can highlight that a little bit. Oops, sorry. This is really difficult to see. I'm going to do my best to point out on this survey.
Was it about the trees in front or the trees in back?
It was just a general question about the original architect put the house at a certain angle because of the trees back in 1986.
Yeah.
I was wondering if that was still the case, or the tree's still in place.
There were a whole bunch of trees in the front of the house. I think there was like 1 or 2 large trees, and then they had it all taped off, a whole bunch of
Yeah,
shrubbery.
there was a fence,
Yeah,
like a
there was
silt.
a fence to protect that,
Right.
but I believe if I looked at it, because I was marching to the back, if I looked at the front, there were some tall.
Right, there was a big one in the back, but it was probably, I would say, 10 feet from
Yeah.
the existing deck.
Right. So
Had
this,
some stumps that had already been taken
Yes,
down.
I
from-
that I did notice, there was
Yeah.
a bunch of
Older
landscaping that
stumps.
had been done.
yeah, this is not an image that shows you two of those trees, I think, in the front yard. This one does not show the one I think may be referencing, that Ms. O'Leary just referenced. I would defer that to the applicant to speak more specifically about the design of that placement. But there are existing trees that are very mature, in the front yard.
This renovation wouldn't, well, wait for I'll ask the applicant.
Okay.
Anything else for John? Mr. Dammeyer?
John, one other question. Did you get any input from the neighbors, from the?
We did not receive any formal comments regarding the application yet.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your time and considering this project and this variance. Just want to thank you, John, and Daniel for all your help as well. Just to answer your question about the trees, it was more about the trees in the front. There are quite a few clusters of trees around, and this slide won't show them, but they're more closer to the front of the driveway and the front property line, off to the right of the driveway, if you're looking at this plan here. And there was a couple sort of in the middle of the yard, not far from the front property line. And we believe there was one in that little circle in the walkway at some point, or some significant planting there. But if you look at the house on the lot, it's pushed way back towards the rear lot line and very far to the side. I think the original intent was probably to align with the side lot line, because you see that the house is sort of aligned parallel with the side lot line. Just to kind of reiterate what we've been talking about up here previously, is that you can see that the rear lot line is far askew from the actual house, and that's really what was causing us to have a little bit of an issue trying to fit this screen porch in off the back. Just to kind of, I'll just kind of tell you, our main design goal here was to really to modernize the house a little bit and clean up the exterior elevation. The existing screen porch and deck that they had on there is really an odd shape. It's sort of it's a rectilinear shape with a clipped corner, basically. And we believe they were trying to, keep that within the setback, even though they missed a little bit. It seems like they're a couple feet outside of the setback there. But anyway, the shape of that screen porch really makes it a tough screen porch to really use functionally the way we consider using screen porches today. I mean, you could have maybe fit a dining table out there, but not much else. Now with our new design, I think you could have a nice seating area and a nice dining area, and that we've included a small fireplace on the end to kind of add to the ambiance out there. We really feel like this lot is much different than a lot of the neighboring lots because of the rear lot line being at a sharp angle to the house, and where the house itself sits on the lot had a lot to do with that too. If this house were moved sort of more to the middle of the property, this screen porch would have fit fine and had no issues with that. But because it was sited originally where it was, it kind of made it very hard to get a decent sized screen porch back there. Just a couple other notes. We feel like this screen porch is fairly modest in comparison to a lot of the neighboring homes, as far as the scale of it goes, and the house in general is somewhat modest compared to some of the larger homes you see on Doral Open. And yeah, we feel like it brings the home up more in keeping with the neighboring properties and with the rest of the street on Doral. And I just want to thank you again for your time, and hope if you have any questions, please let me know.
Questions for Mr. Hammond? I just note a couple of things. Maybe you can tell me if I'm correct or not. While you don't really get credit for it, you have reduced the amount of sidewalk in the back because you no longer have this stairwell sticking out.
Correct, yes.
Which also seems to me, even though it's a little more of an encroachment, it reduces the external profile somewhat.
Yes, that's a good point. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Was there a landscape plan attached to this, or you're going to send it to John
We are going to send that,
at a later date?
yes, ma'am.
So I'm presuming that we make that a condition.
Yes, that, okay.
Anything else? I'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to go ahead and pass this, and to be sure to get a landscape plan to John.
Okay,
That's acceptable.
sure.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
Phil, okay. Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I would just note that I think historically, a lot of times when someone is out of it predates it, like grandfather, where they weren't, and, they were into the setback already, we let people do it because they're saving trees. So they move things. This was done back in '86 to save trees in the front. I get that. Just a thought.
Yeah.
That, this is something they're actually encroaching more. They are making it, more aesthetically pleasing and more functional. I get that.
Yeah. And even though it's encroaching more, it seems to me the profile is less because of that stairwell not sticking out.
No, that's one of the few property, it's on number 2 at Turtle, correct? The tee box.
Yes.
I've not been
yeah.
in that yard, so.
Okay.
Not yet.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion is, the application is approved with the provision that a landscape plan be presented and approved by the planning director. John, do we have any further business?
You all did receive an email last week noting I got confused on one case. Just to let you know, we will have a October meeting. So right now we have 3 cases, but October we will have a meeting. So that's the only thing for you. Yep.
Anything else? All right, I'll call this meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone.